Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and we'll continue with our study on CI/CD. Today is day 34 of our 100 days of DevOps, and if you're seeing this video for the first time, what we are trying to achieve is we are trying to cover everything from DevOps fundamental to advanced concepts in DevOps in 100 days. And we've been looking at so many things. We've covered Linux fundamentals, we've covered bash scripting, networking, containerization, and then we are looking at CI/CD. So yesterday, I gave an introduction to what CI/CD means. That's continuous integration and continuous deployment, or delivery rather. I've explained the steps, I've explained the tools, and I've explained what this has come to, achieve. So before you see today's video, I would advise that you're able to see, you go back to see yesterday's video so you can understand where we are coming from. So yesterday we did, all what we did yesterday was just about talking and introduction. We'll begin the hands-on today. From my video yesterday, I said we'll start with Jenkins. So we'll start by installing. What we'll do today is just basically we'll install Jenkins. So I'm going to be demonstrating the entire process of installing Jenkins. So first off, what is Jenkins? Jenkins is more of or less like a CI/CD tool. You can use it for CI/CD, but most times it does more of CI. It can do the continuous delivery part, but sometimes most people use it now in a GitOps workflow. We mostly use Jenkins for CI purpose. And from my slide, you can see everything that CI does. It does checks out your code. It does testing, different type of testing. It scans for vulnerability. It helps build your image. It helps push to your repository. And in a GitHub setup, it updates your GitOps repository. So that is exactly what Jenkins has actually come to do. It's one of the oldest CI/CD tools actually, and that's why I'm starting with that one first before we go into more modern tools like Argo CD and the likes. So we are going to be installing Jenkins today, and there are majorly two ways of installing Jenkins. So if we go to the documentation, one of the best ways to actually install something is to actually go to the tools documentation. If you're working with a tool, the best way is to go to your documentation, because most times you will get updated information on the documentation than looking out for it on third party platforms. So I prefer doing everything on the user documentation. So from here, Jenkins is a self-contained open source automation server which can be used to automate all sorts of tasks related to building, testing, and delivery or deploying software. Just like I explained, it is used for CI/CD. Though it can be used for CI/CD, like I said, but most of the time in a GitOps workflow, we use Jenkins only for CI and not for CD. So without wasting much time, I'm just going to go to the installation. So we'll click on installing Jenkins, and from the drop down here, you can see, let me make this, let me increase this. So you can see there are different options to install Jenkins. You can install Jenkins using Docker. You can install Jenkins on Kubernetes. You can install Jenkins on Linux, on Windows, on, every other, on different platforms. What we are going to do is we are going to pick the easiest step, which is installing using Docker. If we want to use Linux OS, you can go through it. You see the documentation. If you want to install for Debian, that's Ubuntu, there is a video on it. There's also the steps if you want to install for Red Hat, if you want to install for Fedora and all of that, you can do that. That's if you're installing on a bare a virtual machine rather. If you want to install on a virtual machine, like for example now we are using this is a virtual, like we're on our virtual machine. So if we want to turn this virtual machine to a Jenkins server, we can just install Jenkins on it using the installation setup for Ubuntu. But I won't be doing that. I would want to use Docker. containerization has made everything easier, where you just quickly and easily get things up instead of having to spin up virtual machines using resources and all of that. So I'm going to use Docker for this setup, and these are the prerequisites for installing it. That's for setting up Docker, right? And then this is the instructions for Mac OS and Linux. You can follow all of this, and yeah, if you really want to install, if you want to use the documentation to install it, yeah, that's one way to go about it. So there's another way to go about it, where we just go to the Docker Hub, because there's already a Jenkins image. You go to the Docker Hub and you use the official Jenkins image to spin up your Jenkins server. So we use this one, Jenkins. You see so many Jenkins, but this is actually you can see Docker official image here, but you can see that it is deprecated. So use Jenkins instead. So we are going to use this particular one, this one here, Jenkins. So we are going to use this. So you can see different versions of Jenkins and all of that. So you can either follow the steps on the Jenkins documentation, or you come to Docker Hub, you pick up a preferred Jenkins image and then use it. So I'm going to be using a Jenkins image, and I've already written. We just finished a session before we started CI/CD. We just finished advanced Docker, which is Docker Compose. So I'm going to be using a Docker Compose to actually spin up my Jenkins image. So I'm not going to be running, and I'm not going to be doing Docker run with the Jenkins image and all of that. So I will use Docker Compose to do that. And I'm going to get that done right now. So first of all, I'll make a directory. Let me clear my screen. Make a directory called Jenkins, where I'm going to store my compose file. When I cd into that directory, docker compose.yaml. So I have my docker compose.yaml file. That's for Jenkins. So I have a compose file here. So I'm just going to copy that and I'll paste here. So I'm going to do an explanation for this. So if you watch my Docker Compose video, most of these things you will understand by now. We're giving our container the name Jenkins. Then we are using image Jenkins LTS. From our Docker Hub, you would see that it was advised that let me go back to Docker Hub. You can see that it was advised to use Jenkins/Jenkins LTS, which is what we are actually using here. Jenkins LTS. Our container name is Jenkins, just like we said. And then the port, this port number, Jenkins default port number on your container is 8080. Now I want to map that to the port number on my host, that's on my laptop. So the port on the container is 8080. However, the port in which I will be able to access that container from my laptop, which is the host machine, is 8081. I hope by now, I believe by now we should already be able to understand the what I'm trying to explain about ports, because I talked about that extensively when I was covering the session or the phase of containerization. So volumes is very, very important. From our Docker sessions, we made mention that volumes is what helps you to persist data. If I don't put a Jenkins volume here, every time I spin up my Jenkins container, all my data will be lost. That's already an established fact. So I want everything, all of my pipelines, everything I write, I want everything to actually be persisted. So I have to attach a volume to it. So I'm attaching this Jenkins home to, this is the volume on our Jenkins container, /var/Jenkins underscore home is what you attach it. This is where all the information of your Jenkins is actually stored. Now I'm attaching another volume, and this volume helps me to, it attached Jenkins, it gives Jenkins the permission to run Docker commands. What I mean is that one of the things that your CI is supposed to do is build Docker images. So if Jenkins is not connected to Docker, if Jenkins does not have the permission to build Docker images, then you won't be able to build it. So this second command, I'm mounting this from Jenkins down to Docker. So I'm able to, I've given Jenkins the permission to actually build Docker images. So I've talked about restart policy. There are different restart policies. So that's self-explanatory. And for volumes, I have this here. This means that Docker Compose will create the volume for me. So when we created a volume by ourselves and then we are mapping it, we have to put something like external, which is true. So that's when you already have like a volume and then you just want to attach it to your compose file. So you use the external true code snippet, right? So, but I've not created the Jenkins home volume before. So I'm leaving that to Docker Compose to actually create. So this is a very, very simple Docker Compose file. I'm going to save this and I'm going to do Docker Compose up. So I'm not building anything. I'm just pulling. I'm going to pull the image from Docker Hub and then attach it to a volume and run it. So Docker Compose up. So when I do that, it is supposed to build. So it's pulling the Jenkins image from Docker Hub. So this might actually take a while. So I'm going to pause the video for this to actually complete. So once it's complete, we'll be back to continue from where we stopped. All right, so we have our compose, it's already up and running. It pulled the image, it created a network, it created a volume, and then it attached it to the Jenkins container. So our Jenkins container is up and running. So if I should go here, remember we mapped it to port 8081. So 192.168.199.136. I mapped it to port 8081. So I'm supposed to connect to Jenkins right now. So good. So we've already connected to Jenkins. Let me reduce let me zoom out the more to 100%. Okay. So now we already have Jenkins. So if you're setting up Jenkins for the first time, there's a default administrator password which is saved in /var/Jenkins home secret initial password. So you're supposed to go to this part on your container, get the administrator password, you input it, and then you're able to proceed. Then you can set your own password. So let's get that done. So for me, I don't have to go to that particular folder because it is already here. You can see it. You can see it here. Jenkins initial setup is required. Admin user blah 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 created a password. So this can also be found in this particular place. But the password has already been made known to me, or it has been shown to me. That's because I didn't run Jenkins in detach mode. If I had run Jenkins in detach mode, I can either get it through the logs or I have to go to this particular part. So I'm just going to get this and I'll paste this here and I'll continue. So I'm not saving. So I'm going to install suggested plugins. Let me install suggested plugins because Jenkins has an idea of the things that you want to do. It's just going to give you suggested plugins and then you can install it. So this is going to also take a while, and I'm going to pause the video again for the installation of these plugins to be completed. So once we are done with that, we'll proceed and I'll show you how to set up your account, and then also we'll see the Jenkins user interface. All right, so we've successfully passed the stage of installing the plugins. So we're just going to create our first admin user. So I'm going to save the tracks. I'm going to use password. I'll confirm password. So that's so. So once that is done, then we'll save and continue. So it gives us the IP address of how we can be able to connect. This is what we actually use to get through to Jenkins. If you can see it here, it's the same thing. It's just showing you the IP address that you're going to use. Let me save this. So we'll save and finish. So we start using Jenkins. So basically we've been able to set up Jenkins. So let's just wait for the user UI to come up. Let's check on our, okay, so this is still running. So this is how our Jenkins interface looks like. So this is basically what you're going to see. If you've successfully, or if you've been able to follow the steps that I have taken, and you've done the same thing that I did, then you should land on this particular homepage, which is the default homepage of Jenkins. So tomorrow we are going to explore this. Would take a look at some parts of Jenkins. We would also be introduced to what a pipeline is, and we'll also be writing our first pipeline. So if you've actually enjoyed this video, please do well to like the video. You can also share it to people that might be interested. And also, if you're yet to subscribe to my channel, kindly do well to subscribe to my channel, and most importantly, turn on your notification bell so that whenever I upload subsequent videos, you're able to get it immediately. So we'll continue with exploring Jenkins tomorrow. Till then, enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers.